All professions benefit from time to time in discussing the ethical issues that their sector is facing. This is the same for the real estate industry as it is for the military, doctors, civil servants, teachers, salespersons, and really any job or profession that deals directly or indirectly with other people. The two primary reasons for this are the long-term economic benefits of running a consistently ethical business, and to regulate over our own industry in order to avoid outcry from the general public, which would compel the government to do it for us. We'll discuss those reasons why we should be ethical towards the end. But first, what is ethics? Ethics is one of those terms that we have difficulty really pinning down with an all-inclusive meaning that is satisfactory for all, but we will try a few. Common definitions you may find on Webster's or in Wikipedia deal with the moral principles behind the actions that we take. Morals are further defined from these sources as right and wrong behavior, which can differ between various groups and cultures, and principles which are inherent truths about a particular subject matter. Ethics can and does differ between different sectors, as you wouldn't expect a realtor to follow the same moral imperatives as that of a soldier, but both have their own that they follow and will be judged by. What makes their ethics differ is the nature of the environments they operate within, the desired behaviors their groups are trying to produce, and ultimately the desired results they are trying to achieve. This is true of all professions. We perceive ethics as how we and our colleagues ought to act within our profession for the betterment of the society in which we serve. We are trying to perceive principles that are inherently subjective in a more objective way and hold ourselves and others to them. Therefore, a more basic and apt definition of ethics we would like to use is that ethics is specific behaviors we have come to determine is either right or wrong for the group. What ethical issues are currently being witnessed within the Oregon real estate industry? When ethics are violated enough to the detriment of the general public, then the government steps in and establishes laws and regulations to help curb that behavior. For our industry, the Oregon Real Estate Agency manages the conduct and punishes violators of Oregon's real estate law. Incompetence. You may not think that being bad at your job is an ethical issue, and in and of itself it is not. No one is perfect, and we all start out our careers with minimal capabilities, which we build over time. The ethical issues occur when they are incompetent, but people who put their trust in them are allowed to be unaware of that fact by the realtor and their firm. The reasons to be wary of incompetency are twofold. 1, clients will no longer commission your services, and 2, you will end up on the Oregon Real Estate Agency's naughty list and lose your license. It is because of the damage an incompetent realtor can do that people will shop around for the best, and who the agency will punish to safeguard the image of our profession. If a realtor can't perform their duties to industry standard, then they shouldn't assume the responsibility. It is wrong to behave in such a manner, and therefore unethical. Intentional violations. It is one thing to knowingly violate the law and regulations due to incompetence. We can forgive a fool for their ignorance and correct it through education and mentorship. It is an entirely more selfish thing to violate them for personal benefit. One reason for intentionally violating the agency's regulations could be attributed to laziness. People are inherently lackadaisical about activities they don't have a vested interest in, or are overconfident about their capabilities. It takes time and effort, and some less ethical agents simply don't bother. Another reason is for personal gain. By violating a law or regulation, they stand to gain some type of capital, asset, or service. This is more nefarious as it usually comes at the expense of someone else. Realtors act as fiduciaries for their clients, and as a result, the client's ends are more important than that of the realtors. Lack of transparency. Another unethical activity, one we have seen in abundance within the real estate industry, isn't actually regulated by the Oregon Real Estate Agency itself. This is probably because it isn't between our people and the general public, but between brokerages and realtors. More precisely, the realtors they seek to recruit to join their firms. The issue in question comes from the transparency, or lack thereof, in the fees and offerings of certain firms. The brokerages seek to acquire as many realtors that can perform as possible. They are the workhorses that engage clients and make transactions happen, so, in most instances, the more the merrier. Because of the singular need of agents, some firms will use techniques to draw the eye of many realtors. And for some, this comes in the form of boasting about their offerings while staying hush about their fees, or making promises they couldn't keep. How do we achieve an ethical environment within the Oregon real estate industry? James H. Toner provides a good example of how to judge ethical quandaries. While he wrote for military audiences and civilian leaders that would employ military force, this thinking can easily be utilized by any sector where ethics is concerned. In Toner's book, True Faith and Allegiance, The Burden of Military Ethics, he said, "It is important to note that ethical conduct normally is based upon a wise blending of customs, rules, outcomes, and circumstances. Blindly following the dictates of one source alone can lead to trouble. Whether or not a general action is ethical or not is difficult to determine due to many variables that go into the decision to act. But with these four categories, we have a process to determine whether specific actions we could take are ethical by themselves. Customs. The unwritten rules that people within the industry follow. Failing to follow these won't result in civil or criminal punishment, but may cause a damage to interpersonal relationships. In a people-oriented business like real estate, these relationships are important. Customs for us include many of the behaviors you would expect of a lady and gentleman. Being respectful, treating people with dignity, being punctual, and generally being trustworthy in doing as you say. Additionally, behaviors of a good fiduciary, such as being empathetic of a client's unique circumstances and making an effort to understand their needs so to better serve them, are valued. Rules. Laws, regulations, codes, and anything actually stated that one must follow or suffer some form of punishment. Within a society, in our case, the Oregon real estate industry, we will identify those behaviors and actions that are so problematic in their consequences that they must be controlled. We find ours in federal and state agency regulations, municipal laws, and even brokerage and MLS bylaws. Outcomes. This very much relies on the ends justifying the means type of ethical assessment. A particular behavior or action may not violate a custom or rule, but still be unethical if you foresee that the subsequent end is likely to be a net negative. Negatives could involve not just yourself, but your family, the brokerage, the clients, the industry, and even local communities. Circumstances. Even if under regular circumstances something may be considered unethical, there could be extenuating circumstances that justify it. Based on the situation, you may be justified in breaking your fiduciary responsibility if your client is knowingly violating the law, or being a whistleblower if your broker is engaging in illicit activities. By assessing an action or behavior against these four areas, we can begin to make a determination on its ethical value. If it doesn't violate the customs of our industry, its laws and regulations, if it provides a generally positive outcome, or the circumstances allow it, then it is ethical. Most of us are capable of assessing things in this light, and do it naturally. The real issue occurs when we have two contradictory options to execute, but neither appears to be ethically superior to the other. When there is a conflict between ethical or semi-ethical decisions, which option takes priority? James H. Toner provides us another way to assess a better option amongst competing ethical loyalties. In the military, lives occasionally must be risked. Never, of course, in a careless or negligent fashion. Without risk, many military purposes could not be fulfilled. People are not chattel to be spent at the whim of military commanders, as great leaders have known from Valley Forge to Desert Storm. But in the military, principle precedes purpose, and purpose precedes people. The military, as with many professions, is a people business. Just as it is with the real estate industry, we too engage with people constantly, though not to the same hazardous degree as with military operations. Regardless, the principle precedes purpose, purpose precedes people guidance is still a very valuable tool when you must decide between those competing ethical decisions we mentioned before. Ronald D. Francis and Guy Murphy, in their book Global Business Ethics, define the purpose of business in two ways. Its purpose is to create goods and services to meet human needs, not to make money for its own sake, and it is to make a profit while behaving ethically. In this way, Francis and Murphy allude that a business, in their conduct, must be ethical. In a way, principle precedes purpose is itself a principle that extends into other endeavors. Regards to purpose preceding people, one element is the economic viability that keeps us providing real estate services as a profession. Naturally, a seller would prefer to retain the 6% of that purchase price instead of giving it up for the commission, but realtors can't feed their families on gratitude alone. In the same way, the brokerage will need its fees and splits if it wants to keep its people and facilities operating. It will need to take from its people so that it can continue to service people. Principle preceding people comes around as well, as we mustn't risk our business in the process of serving our clients. Bottom line, support your clients to the fullest extent you can while not endangering your business and principles. While engaging in business alongside colleagues, the brokerage, amongst your competitors, and with your affiliates, they mustn't conflict with established principles, be they codified in laws or regulations, or unwritten customs for how you treat others. Basically, if you believe that what we provide as realtors is a valuable service to the people of Oregon, then you must always keep in mind what must be done to protect our industry, so it can continue to provide this service into the future. The Oregon real estate industry suffers many ethical issues, as do other professions. It behooves us to discuss it periodically to ensure we maintain control over our own conduct. This helps us build confidence amongst the general public that we are the consummate professionals we say we are, and it also keeps the government from imposing more regulations to try to keep our people in line on our behalf. Some of the issues we have been seeing involve the following: the general incompetency displayed by a handful of agents that require greater oversight and mentorship, purposeful violations of regulations either for lackadaisical or opportunistic reasons, lack of transparency between certain brokerages and the realtors they are seeking to prospect. There are methods to help people ensure that their actions are ethically sound, and that includes assessing them against our customs, industry rules, social outcomes, and specific circumstances. At times, there may be situations in which you have to pick between competing priorities. Keeping in mind that your principles should always come first, those principles are followed up by the purpose of your business as it keeps you alive. As long as your principles and purpose aren't being violated, then supporting your clients to the best of your ability is your fiduciary responsibility.